Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this channel. Hey, if it's your birthday, I want to wish you a happy birthday. It's just something we do here. So if you're new to watching and it's your birthday, consider it your lucky day in more ways than one. Okay, a lot of you have reached out in the comments of some videos and asked me to throw out opinions or talk about the DieselGate scandal from Volkswagen, as it's being called by some. It's also being called diesel dupe over in Europe, but you know, we got this whole Watergate thing that happened back in the 70s with President Nixon here in the States, when we throw gate on the end of anything that has anything to do with scandal. So Volkswagen Gate, VW Gate, whatever you want to call it. This is saddening. And it wasn't that long ago, I was doing a video about Chrysler recalls. And before that, we had the airbag recalls. We've had one after another. Car companies have been getting gut punched here and there. Why? Because they keep lying to us. And this is what gets to me. And this thing with Volkswagen actually ranks like way up there, okay? Negligence on the part of Chrysler for just completely ignoring the fact that they had vehicles with issues that were causing deaths and injury and all that kind of thing. This is something a little bit different. Not necessarily deaths involved, but emissions standards. Back in the 70s, diesels were starting to be introduced into the US market. I remember this, I was around then, and they kept wanting to sell us diesels and getting us to drive diesels, mainly because of the oil embargo that hit in 1972 when Saudi Arabia said, hey, we ain't giving you no more oil. And then all our big cars got a lot smaller. A lot of things changed, emissions and everything, and people started turning to things like diesel. Well, back in the 70s, in my opinion, what killed the diesel was General Motors. And what they did was they took gasoline engine blocks that they had existing and tried to modify them and make them into diesel engines. A colossal failure. It was a shortcut to try to get diesels to market as quickly as possible. And as a result, there were people that took their brand new cars back to the dealerships to get their diesel engines replaced with gasoline engines because they were such garbage. So that was part of what killed it. Also, the American public has really never been diesel car buyers. As far as I can remember, a lot of you, especially in Europe, have asked me, hey Eric, can you do more videos about diesel vehicles? And I would love to do more videos about diesel vehicles, but the most common diesel vehicles that I'm aware of are the trucks that are around. Not too many diesel cars around. It's rare. In fact, in the articles that I'm going to cite later in this video, they state that about 1% of the US car sales involve diesel vehicles. So it's a very small percentage of the American car buying public that has a diesel vehicle, outside of, like I said, the trucks. So we don't really buy diesels. So Volkswagen comes along and says they want to sell us diesels. So they start creating clean diesel technology, meaning that their diesel vehicles burn cleaner than other diesel vehicles on the road. Okay, clean diesel technology. Volkswagen's selling us diesels, they want us to buy diesels. But the thing is diesels have always had difficulty passing an emissions test. I believe the main thing that they have trouble with is Nox emissions. And Nox emissions are nitrogen and oxygen combining in an indeterminate number. It could be NO2, NO3, we've talked about this before, and this is what catalytic converters help clean up. And Nox emissions are particularly an issue with diesel vehicles because of the way they operate. Diesel vehicles, diesel engines don't use an ignition system. So they don't have spark plugs, they don't have a distributor, they don't fire a spark plug off every time the piston gets to the top of its travel so that it can run. Gasoline engines do that, or other engines do that. Diesel engines use the extreme heat and pressure created by the compression of that mixture, fuel and air, to ignite and cause power, and give it power. So the squeeze, if you will, in diesel is what gives it its ignition. So heat and pressure. So it squeezes it really tight, so tightly that it gets hot enough to ignite on its own, and you have combustion, and away you go. Nox emissions form under extreme heat and pressure. So there's almost no way around it with diesel vehicles. So here comes Volkswagen and they say, clean diesel technology. We're going to make lower emitting diesel vehicles and sell them in the US market. Well, they got a little shady with this, and what they did, and this is what this scandal is all about, they actually they call it a device, but I'm not so sure it's a device. I think it's a program within the vehicle's computer that detects when it's being tested for emissions. And when it detects that the steering wheel isn't being moved, I mean, everything, there's lots of inputs going to the computer. So the computer knows what's happening with that vehicle. It's not too much of a stretch for them to put a program in there to say, okay, the front wheels aren't moving, the back wheels aren't moving on front wheel drive vehicles. Back wheels aren't moving, steering wheel isn't moving, and we're going through a drive cycle. Ding, we're getting tested for emissions. Therefore, we're going to reduce power, reduce the performance of the engine to conform with the emission standards. So it would go into this sort of limp-in mode or pass emissions test mode, and it would pass the emissions test, but then when you drove it away, all your power was restored and everything and went back to normal. There's your clean diesel technology right there, fooling an emissions test. Volkswagen has admitted to this. I'm not making this up. Volkswagen has admitted to doing this. They're like, oh, we're sorry. And this brings me back full circle. Car companies lately, what the heck is up? I mean, are you that desperate for a profit margin? And, you know, that's the only thing I can come back to, because over and over again, it seems, and every other week it seems, it's insane how often we're hearing about these car companies that are basically flouting the rules, doing whatever they can to make a buck. And Volkswagen is just the latest in a long line. I like Volkswagens. My friend Humble Mechanic, great guy, works on Volkswagens. I don't have a problem with Volkswagens. No, I don't work on them too much, but I'm a Japanese car expert, let's just put it that way. Okay, so I'm not an expert with VWs, and I think when you work on a lot of different vehicles, you find some people that specialize do really well, blah, blah, blah. That's discussion for another video, but getting back to Volkswagen. Here's the deal. Because of this, and I'm gonna get to this in a little bit, my concern is that this begins to snowball. I mean, several car companies have been hit. Volkswagen is, I believe, the largest automaker in the world, and they also have a hand in Audi and Porsche and a lot of other vehicles that are out there have VW roots. The Bugattis, they have VW roots. Lamborghini, I think, is also falls within that. So it goes deep, really deep. So this is the kind of numbers that we're talking about with Volkswagen here. The EPA has the ability to fine up to $37,500 per vehicle that falls under this suit, complaint, whatever we want to call it. They're talking about recalling almost 500,000 vehicles. So 500,000 times that 37,500 or whatever comes out to about 7.3 billion. That is what Volkswagen has set aside. So they've already set aside $7.3 billion to deal with this. And this is just the US. Other countries such as South Korea and Europe are all looking at this very closely, saying, well, they did that to America, so could they also be doing this to us? It's just smart thinking. VW stock has already dropped at least 17%, along with other car companies that didn't have anything to do with this. Trust in car companies is waning, and this is why. Because we have these companies that are, like I say, just out there trying to make a buck. To the tune of, you can't claim ignorance in this situation. You just can't. That's why they came out and apologized, because somebody found it, somebody discovered what it was somewhere. And they figured out that Volkswagen had deliberately made it so that those vehicles would try to outwit an emissions test. I mean, that's straight up lying. That's straight up cheating. Straight up. This is my concern. All these recalls, the trust in car manufacturers now is lower than low. And can you blame us as the car buying public? This is my fear. Car companies getting hit with all of these billion-dollar lawsuits. It's not like they can continue on doing that forever and ever. They either have to shutter the doors, they have to cut costs somewhere, and they already were cutting the cost. I mean, we've talked about smaller, lighter, cheaper. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with a bunch of broke car companies trying to make vehicles to meet even more stringent emission standards. I mean, the emission standards that we have now are about to get an overhaul real soon and get even more stringent. Cars are going to be pretty wimpy. I mean, this may be the golden age of vehicles that are manufactured. We may never see vehicles on this level again. I say may never see, I don't know. So I'm happy to have things like Oliver behind me to at least play for a little bit before we're not allowed to anymore. What comes to mind is that Rush song, Red Barchetta, Before the Motor Law. That's one of the lyrics in that song. And that just has always stuck with me ever since I listened to that initially, before the motor law, like outlawing engines, emissions, doing all this stuff. Let's face it, we have done a number on this planet, and in a lot of different ways to exist as human beings. We've done a lot of things that are definitely going to come back to us, and are coming back to us in some cases. This is the way I look at it though. When you look at the big picture, the Earth doesn't care whether we're here or not. It really doesn't. The Earth has gone through mass extinction events in the past. 80% of the species were wiped out a few billion years ago on this, before the dinosaurs. 80% of the species on the planet were wiped out. And each extinction event coincides with climatic changes. So we may be the instrument of our own demise here, but I'm getting a bit heady. I'm getting a bit beyond the whole Volkswagen discussion here, which is what I want to come back to. Volkswagen, seriously, you tried to pull one over on us. Other car companies may suffer as a result. I mean, we may suffer across the board for this kind of behavior. If you're a car company, stop screwing around. Make what you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, make them safe. And if you screw up, admit you screwed up and take care of it. It's just that simple. But don't try to game the system, because sooner or later you're going to get caught. I mean, 500,000 vehicles. Yeah, the EPA is going to have fun with this one. We'll have to see how this all develops. But I'm going to throw the discussion back to you, the audience, the viewing public. I know I've run the gambit here, and I apologize for that. But this is viewer requested, and I'm trying to stay with the times here. Anyway, love to hear more about what you, the viewers, think about this whole situation. There'll be a link in the description to a discussion about this video over at ericthecarguy.com. You can, of course, leave comments as well. But I'm also going to put links in the description to a couple of articles, one of them that I read on this whole situation, to try to give you a little more detail, a little more insight into the issue. Don't just listen to me spouting off. There's lots of sources that you can go to, and I'll try to include a few in the description for you, just to have some reading fun. Outside of that, if you have some automotive questions, please go over to ericthecarguy.com. Welcome video there to tell you about the stuff we have there to help you. If you wish to connect with me socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram, and I close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and ETCG1 videos come out on Monday, so stop back and see me then. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.